Y'all remember when we went to Pedernales and we all just kind of like found our own spot and hung up our hammocks and enjoyed the beauty? I read this psalm that day and got extremely convicted. And so it's kind of cool that our team went out there together and this happened, this psalm, God kind of stirred in my heart through this psalm, and then now here I am. It's back to the whole team again. So it's kind of come full circle. But we'll read these first 6 verses together, all right? It'll be on the screen for you. Psalm 137, verses 1 through 6. By the waters of Babylon, there we sat down and wept when we remembered Zion. On the willows there we hung up our lyres, for there our captors required of us songs and our tormentors mirth, saying, "Sing us one of the songs of Zion." How shall we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? If I forget you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget its skill. Let my tongue stick to the roof of my mouth if I don't remember you, if I don't set Jerusalem above my highest joy. In the last 3 verses of that psalm, it's an imprecatory psalm. So it's one of those where the psalmist is praying for God's wrath to come down on his enemies, and it's one of those that's kind of hard to deal with. So we're just going to, I have 10 minutes, so we're not going to deal with those last 3 verses. But those first 6, man, God did some work in me through those verses. So we're just going to kind of go through them verse by verse for a little bit. So starting in verse 1, it says, by the waters of Babylon, there we sat down and wept when we remembered Zion. So the psalmist is in captivity. They have been exiled, they are captors, and they have tormentors. And here they are. We see in the next few verses that they're musicians, and here we see the stereotype of an artist. They're weeping by the river. They're in captivity, so they're like, man, let's just go by the river and cry. And so Spurgeon actually in one of the commentaries said, he said they distanced themselves, isolated themselves to go and be by the river where it flowed as their tears. So I'm sure all of us artists in here can identify with that. So they've been taken captive. They're 600 miles away from home, and they weep at the waters of the city of their captors. They think of home. They think of where they used to worship. They think of all the familiarity that they used to know back in Jerusalem, and they are filled with sorrow. And then the next verse, it says this, on the willow, there we hung up our lyres. So these are musicians, and they have said, no, we're not playing. We're too sad to play. We miss home too much. This is what we used to do at home. And now here we are, we're captive, and that's not what we do. So they hang it up. And this is what Spurgeon says. I think we'll have it on the screen for you. Spurgeon said this, the drooping branches appeared to weep as we did. And so we gave to them our instruments of music. The willows could as well make melody as we, for we had no mind for minstrelsy. In the midst of the willows, or in the midst of the rivers, or in the midst of Babylon, it matters little which. They hung their harps aloft, those harps which once in Zion's halls the soul of music shed. And so these musicians, their instruments used to make beautiful music to the Lord in Zion, and now here they are, alone, captive, being tormented. So they stopped playing, and their tormentors, their captors, in the next verse, for their captors required of us songs, and our tormentors mirth, saying, sing us one of the songs of Zion. So just poking them. They're sad, they're far away from home, and the captors are saying, hey, why don't you sing one of the songs you used to sing? Why don't you take your lyre off the tree and play us one of your songs? And they don't want to sing. They're certainly not going to do it to the amusement of their captors. And so here, there's 2 things here for us in that last verse. One, we have a captor. We have an enemy. We have a tormentor. A captor that we have been freed from, but one that still lies and still mocks. And maybe you've heard these lies, the ones that I hear in the darkest of days when I hear the enemy, the captor, the tormentor saying, do you really think it matters that we're going to sing today? Maybe you've heard that one. Maybe you've heard the one that's, they're just songs. Does it really matter in the kingdom of God? Does it really matter? have fun this weekend singing songs and people loving the songs, but probably not even loving Jesus, just loving the music. That's the lie I hear from our captor. And then it goes on, and it says, how shall we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? And we know this to be true. Paul makes it very clear. We're aliens, sojourners. This is not home. We are in a foreign land. We're far from where we should be. And so we have this, this moment of sadness is where the psalmist is. How shall we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? And then it kind of takes a turn here. And this is where I want us to talk about engagement, and engagement in remembering, an engagement of remembrance, an engagement of engaging with the Lord before we engage our people, before we engage our church. And here it is, verse 5. If I forget you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget its skill. Uh-oh. For a bunch of musicians, if your right hand forgets your skill, that's a problem. Let my tongue stick to the roof of my mouth if I don't remember you, if I don't set Jerusalem above my highest joy. So here they are in captivity. The captors, the tormentors are just mocking them with lies and mocking them with having them sing. And these guys are saying, I just want to remember. I just want to remember Jerusalem. I want to remember what God did for our fathers and our fathers' fathers and our fathers' fathers' fathers, how they were in slavery and God pulled them out of slavery and he split seas and he split rivers and he brought us to Jerusalem and there we worshiped God. I want to remember that. That's what these guys are saying. And if I don't want to play. I don't even want to be able to play. God, would you take my hand? God, would you make my tongue stick to the roof of my mouth? I don't want to make any music if I don't remember Zion, because Zion is home. And so for us, man, I want us to engage our church, engage our people from an engagement of remembrance, where we remember that this is not home. Would we remember, and would this be our prayer? That, God, would you make it where we can't sing, where we can't play, if we're not remembering where we are from, what God has done for us in Christ. And then, man, I think remembrance is really incomplete, though. There's only so much you can do just remembering, looking back. And so in Joshua, there's just one simple verse right before the Battle of Jericho. And the Lord tells Joshua, he says, hey, man, you're going to go and do this battle of Jericho. You're going to win this battle, and I'm going to tell you how tomorrow, but here's what I want you to do. And in verse 5 of chapter 3 of Joshua, he says, Joshua comes to all the people of Israel, and he says, consecrate yourselves today, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders. And so we have the flip side of the coin. We have the remembrance, engagement of remembering, engaging with God and being reminded of what we are, who we are, where we're from, why we're doing things. And then we have this engagement of expectation where the Lord has said, consecrate yourself, prepare yourself, because tomorrow I'm going to do something crazy among you. I'm going to do wonders among you. And I am convicted by that because my Saturday night looks just a little bit different than the average person who's going to sit in those chairs on a Sunday. And I wonder if that might be true for us. I hope it's not, but I want us to be a people who are a team, worship leaders who engage in expectation, where on Saturday nights we are engaging in expectation, asking God, begging God to do things, and actually believing that he will. Because we know what happened the next day. They blew trumpets and the walls came down and they won the battle. And man, I just been super convicted by that, by this Psalm 137 thing of remember who you are. I don't want to play if I don't remember. I don't want to sing if I don't remember. But then this other expectation. I want to engage with God in looking to him. and believing that he will do wonders tomorrow.